Hey guys, so we are back for our next section, all right? And this section is going to be all about the different pairs of angles you can have. Okay, oh, don't do that. So we remember, okay, so recall an angle is made up of two different rays, all right? So when we draw a ray is a segment that goes forever in one direction, right? Well, when you connect two of them, well, we've got an angle, right? And we've got different types of angles that when you combine them or when they have a certain characteristic that we have special names for them, all right? So this section is going to be super boring because it's literally just going to be definitions, but it's really going to help you understand one, the different types of angles you can have, and two, how you're going to be able to use them in the future, especially when you get to proofs, because those are our favorite things. All right, so the first pair of angles we have are supplementary angles. All right, so if two angles are supplementary, that means that when you add them both up, they add up to 180 degrees. All right, and if we remember what a 180-degree angle looks like, it's a straight line. Okay, even though it doesn't look like an angle, it is. So if, say, we have that and I were to draw this little divider right here, okay, connect that, and I say this is angle 1 and angle 2, we can say angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary, right? Because we know when we add them up, it's going to be a straight line. Okay, so remember, supplementary has to be a straight line because that's the only way we can get 180 degrees. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to look at, they're called adjacent angles. There's not going to be a difference between your supplementary angles and your adjacent angles. So if I were to redraw that picture that we have for supplementary angles, adjacent angles, the definition isn't that they add up to 180 degrees. The definition of adjacent angles is adjacent means you are next to, right? So they're angles directly next to one another. Now, when that happens, it ends up being 180 degrees. Okay, so if we have the 1 and 2, those are adjacent angles and they're also supplementary angles, right? If I even get fancier and over here on the side, say I draw this right here. Okay, and I'm going to label these angles. We'll do 1. Oh, that didn't work. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? If I have that, I can say angles 1 and angles 2 are adjacent. Okay, so 1 and 2. I can say angles 1 and 4 are adjacent. I can also say angles 4 and 3 are adjacent. And I can say angles 2 and 3 are adjacent. I'm going to get lazy and not write that. Okay? But if we also look at, say we just look at angles 1 and 2. Why did you just move on me? Angles 1 and 2. Not only are they adjacent, but we know that they're going to end up making a straight line, so they're also supplementary, all right? So you will find when you have angles that are supplementary, they are also adjacent, or vice versa. All right? So next one, complementary angles. All right, when we're dealing with those are angles that add to 90 degrees. All right, so if we recall, when we have a 90-degree angle, we also call that a right angle. Okay, so if I have this and say it's split like this, okay, we'll say that's 1 and 2, and we'll say that this was also marked to, we have to make sure that it's marked. If it's not marked, or unless I tell you otherwise, we can't just assume, oh, because it looks like a right angle, it must be a right angle, right? It has to be specified that it is exactly 90 degrees, because if it's 89.9 degrees, that's not a right angle. Okay, but in this scenario, because that little box is down there, we can say that angles 1 and angle 2 are complementary angles. Okay, so they're just angles that add up to 90 degrees. And our very last definition are vertical angles. Okay, and vertical angles are angles that are directly across from each other. Okay, so the best way to describe this is going to be with a picture. So if I have two lines, so in order to have vertical angles, you have to have two lines crossing. It doesn't matter how they cross. It doesn't matter what the angles are that are formed, but they have to be crossing like this. Okay, so if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, all right, vertical angles are the angles that are directly across from each other. Okay, so angles 1 and 2 are vertical angles. All right, and angles 3 and 4 are vertical angles. All right, and one special thing that we know about vertical angles is they will always be equal in measure. What that means is if I tell you that this angle right here is 29 degrees, all right, that means that angle 2 is also 29 degrees. That will always be true. There will never be a situation where your vertical angles are not congruent. Okay, so tomorrow, make sure you have these notes in class. Remember, if you went through this whole entire video and you didn't take notes, go back and take the notes, because that's what I'm grading. I'm not grading if you watch the video or not. Okay, if you don't have the notes written down and I can't see them, you get a 0. All right, so make sure you have the notes in class tomorrow and be ready for us to do a maze, and make sure you memorize these 4 definitions.